Welcome to Break the Cycle with Bethany Dotson, the podcast for high achieving professional women who struggle with codependency, attracting emotionally unavailable partners, and who repeat dysfunctional patterns in love. I'm your host, Bethany Dotson, and if you want to learn more about how to break your cycle in love, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and be the first to know when a new episode drops. I'll see you inside. Good afternoon, everybody. Whether it's from trauma, codependency, which is often rooted in trauma, most of the women that I work with have never had a healthy, fulfilling relationship. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to fall in love with the process of dating when you've had repeated betrayal and you don't think you can trust yourself and you're not sure if there's a great guy out there for you and you don't know if you're going to be able to take action on the red flags next time, or you're afraid you're going to push a great person away, or you're afraid an amazing, available man who's high value and has his shit together is going to see your relationship history as red flags. So, we're going to talk about how to love the process of dating again when you may feel right now indifferent. You may feel meh. You may feel like, what's the point? But deep down in your heart, and this is true for just about every single person that I speak to, every single woman that I talk to, yes, they may have been burned in love before. They may have stayed long past the expiration date. They may have sensed things were not right. They sensed red flags very early on in the first week, usually. But even with all of that pain, this is how resilient the heart is. Even with all of that pain and that turmoil, everybody that I speak to ultimately wants to have a healthy relationship. But the big block is that they don't know how it's going to happen. They're not sure. They don't think it's possible. There's all of this stuff that's in between where they are and where they want to go. So before I talk about how to fall in love with that process and what needs to shift within you and your heart and your mindset to stop blocking great things from happening to you, because a mentor that I adore says that abundance and love are all around us. And it's not that we're surrounded by crappy men or we're surrounded by poor circumstances. Sure, there's a lot of pain and chaos and bad things going on in the world, but there are good things waiting to enter your life, including relationships and including opportunities and including more money. And it is often we who are the block to that. We are putting up the roadblocks and the barbed wire fence and the walls and all that kind of stuff. So before I talk about how to fall in love, I'm going to talk about a few mistakes, common mistakes that I see in the women that I work with and the women that I speak to on the phone every week. So first mistake that I see is a lot of women tend to fall into a pattern of resignation. So they get out of a marriage that lasted too many years. They get out of a relationship that lasted too long, and they take a several months off. Sometimes they take years off of dating, and they tell themselves things like, well, if it happens, it happens. If God wants me to have somebody, I'll have somebody. Well, I mean, if the right guy comes along, then maybe I'll go for it. So they don't have any goals on what they want in their relationship area of their life. And they tend to be very hands off. They're just like, "Mm, if, whatever, like I could go for it, I could not go for it." And the danger about this is that if this is you and you're resonating, you're like, yes, this is me, I'm doing that right now. The danger with this is that it's really easy to get stuck there for years, if not decades. And I've talked to many, many women who have well, if it happens, it happens. They had that same mindset and they applied that same strategy when they were in a dysfunctional marriage or a dysfunctional relationship. A mentor of mine says the word hopium, like they're hoping it gets better. They're hoping a great guy comes along. They're hoping their ex change. They were hoping he would change for like 25 years. So that same laxity is an attitude is what they then bring into their future. And unfortunately, that apathetic me- attitude doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't get you very far. And actually, that apathetic attitude is really a protective mechanism. Most people take a very hands off approach to dating. And I'm speaking from personal experience as well. They take a very hands off approach to dating when they've had nothing but emotionally unavailable or chaotic or tumultuous or narcissistic relationships. They take this because they don't want more pain. They don't want to feel more pain. They don't want to feel more heartache. They don't want to waste more time. They don't want to keep making the same mistakes. And so as a way to counter that fear of making the same mistakes, they take a very backseat attitude and they're very vague and they don't actually give themselves permission to go for it. When you have them, if God wants me to have somebody, it'll give me somebody. If the right guy comes along, understand that you're really protecting yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So here's the thing. If you've had a lot of gaslighting, if you recognize that you're codependent, maybe you've read the literature, maybe you've done a lot of research, maybe you've been in therapy for a little bit and you're like, okay, my parents, I got this from my childhood. I learned this patterning in my childhood. Great. I know that, but how do I stop doing it? Like you have this awareness. Feeling gun shy around relationships is totally normal. But here's the hard truth that nobody wants to hear. In order to have a wonderful relationship and in order to open yourself to that experience, you cannot get there if you're living in fear. You cannot get there. You cannot have a healthy relationship if the primary thoughts going through your mind and the patterning in your subconscious and the feelings that are coursing through your body are one of, I don't know, what if I can't meet anybody? What if I'm too old? Like, what if I meet another God? It's like so hard. All I do, you can't get there from that mindset. And I totally get it. When you've had narcissistic relationships, when you've had long, lifelong history of not getting your needs met, you thought you met the one and there were red flags like in the first date or the first couple of weeks and you ignored all those and you bought into the potential and you bought into the fantasy. Trust me, it's really hard to get on board and change and believe in love again. I know. But if you want to have a healthy relationship and break the pattern that you've been doing, and most of the women that I work with have been doing this 40, 50, or 60 years, you have to change that apathetic meh attitude because that is not going to get you where you want to go. And I have a coach who says that the apathy zone is like ultimately dangerous, even more dangerous than being in a lot of pain because apathy is like that in between. It's like the Goldilocks syndrome. Goldilocks, like the fairy tale Goldilocks and the three bears, where she eats the pot of the porridge is not too hot and it's not too cold. It's like you're setting in a room, you want to go outside, but it's hot outside and it's not too hot inside, but it's not too cold. You're just in this holding period and that holding period is what you did to stay in a toxic relationship to begin with for a long period of time. If I leave, what if I can't meet anybody where I have as much chemistry? What if I can't meet anybody? What if I make a mistake and I'm leaving too soon? Like you justify the reasons why you need to stay where you are. And unfortunately, that pattern will not lead you to a healthy relationship. So that's the number one mistake that I see. One of the number one mistakes that I see being very vague, being apathetic, taking a very hands off approach to it, hoping that it just happens, but not doing anything differently in their lives to welcome that experience. And then, most importantly, living in a state of fear every day. And fear shows up in a multitude of ways. Doesn't mean that you're waking up every day and you feel fearful or you get online on an online dating app and you start feeling fearful. Fear can show up as staying chronically busy and running away from your feelings. Fear can show up as feeling numb. You're just like, I don't really, I'm living, I'm waking up and I'm showering and I'm going to work, but I'm just like existing. Fear can show up as not sharing yourself fully with your friends, not communicating boundaries, people pleasing. So there's a lot of different ways that fear can show up. And if your primary emotional home in your life is centered around anxiety, lack, I'm too old. There's not enough time. I wasted too much time. What if great guys don't like me? There's not enough men my age or whatever. Fear based. What if I start dating and I make the same mistake? Or what if a great guy isn't really into me? What if I start this and it doesn't work out? All of that stuff, even fear around, and I work a lot with women who, they have toxic patterns in their relationships, but then that doesn't just stay in their intimate romantic relationships. They have toxic patterns at work. A lot of times the women that I work with, they're bending over backwards in the wrong relationships, and then they're bending over backwards at work in a job environment that is unfulfilling. And they're telling themselves all of these excuses on why they should stick it out. Just like they told themselves all of these excuses on why they needed to stick it out with a toxic relationship. So that is fear. And if you're living primarily in anxiety, lack, or fear, you're pushing your relationship goals away. You're pushing a lot of life out. You're edging life out. There's a thing, edging God out, edging God, ego, edging God out. So you're keeping everything that you want at bay. So that's the number one mistake that I see. The second mistake that I see, not as common, but I do see this, is speaking with women who have a long laundry list down to the minute detail of what they need their partner to be, they need him to be. This has got to be this amount of money. He's got to have this type of education. He's got to have all these things, 40 or 50 things, bucket list items that they want in a partner. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. Okay. In fact, I have my clients get very clear and extremely specific on what they want. However, a mistake and a trap that I see some women getting into is that they get so married to this list. They're hyper focused on these qualities. And here's the catch, they're not living those qualities themselves. They want a guy who's kind, they want a guy who's compassionate, they want a guy who's driven and ambitious. But she is beating herself up every single day with her inner critic and being too hard on herself and setting impossibly high, impossible to meet standards for herself at work and in her life. She's a perfectionist. She doesn't give herself any grace. She might be driven, but she's staying stuck in a toxic job environment. She's got a bunch of friends that drain her. She doesn't have any boundaries. And so she wants a guy that is everything that she ultimately wants to be, but she's not living those and embodying those values and traits. So if you know that you want somebody who's kind and compassionate and patient and adventurous and driven and he goes with the flow, you have to be honest and look at yourself. Are you adventurous? Are you really going with the flow? Are you patient with yourself? Are you compassionate towards yourself? Are you still beating yourself up for staying 25 years with a partner that did a lot of damage on your psychology? Are you kind to yourself, or are you constantly comparing yourself to people and feeling and believing that your time has passed and that you can't have a great relationship? So, if you want certain qualities in a relationship and you want to feel, a lot of people want a relationship because they believe it's going to make them feel a certain way. And if you're in your life right now and you feel apathetic, you feel uninspired, you feel unmotivated, you feel like you're just existing but not really living, you feel like a primary storyline going through your mind is, will I ever have a healthy relationship? You're at once again keeping those things at bay. You're not a match for that. And a relationship might come along if you're in that state of being, but it won't last. And I've seen this too many times to count. If I had a dime For every woman that I've talked to who's gotten out of a bad marriage or out of a bad relationship, took a few months off, took a few years off, and then get right back into the same scenario. They did all the right things, but because emotionally they were still living an uninspired life, they were still feeling unmotivated, they were still feeling like life is just life. I'm not really excited about my own life. Then get right back into the same scenario and incur more damage and feel even more mistrustful, and the walls get even higher. And it just gets worse and worse as the years roll on. So if you want a great partner and you have a laundry list of things that this person needs to meet, you need to first take that laundry list, go stare in the mirror, and ask yourself honestly, am I really embodying these values? I speak to a lot of women who tell me they want an adventurous partner, but these women are not adventurous themselves. They live a small, boxed in life. And let me tell you, trauma will do this to you. When you have had a lot of chaos and a lot of drama, and your emotional well being has been drained, and you have lived a large majority of your life without any sense of inner peace, what happens, what I tend to see happen, is that women will get out of these relationships and they will live a small, stagnant life. They don't really step out of their comfort zone. They certainly don't date, if at all, very often. And when they do, it's always a disappointment. Their job is just, it's okay. It's not really that great. It's decent. I hear that a lot. Life is just decent. I can't complain. It's this meh attitude. And then they say they want somebody adventurous, but they're not living that. So you have to embody what it is that you want, and you have to be happy, truly happy where you are right now. You have to be that 1000% in your cells and down to your bones. You got to wake up happy. You got to go to bed happy. You're going to have crap days, but your emotional home needs to be in a place that is a match for what you want. And if you're like, I don't know, I mean, if it happens, it happens. That's not a match. And if you have a laundry list of traits and characteristics and check the box types of things that you need this guy to be, and you're not truly embodying those things yourself on a consistent basis, you're not in alignment. You're not a match for it, right? You're a match for something that's going to take away your loneliness or your pain temporarily, and that will ultimately unravel and devolve into another dysfunctional mess. So those are the two biggest mistakes that I see women making, right? And it's never about where you live. It's never about the quality of men in your area. It's never about how old you are, how young you are, how much baggage you have, how much you weigh, how tall you are, how much money is in your bank account. It's really about none of those things. It is 100% about what's going on in here and in here, your psychology and in your heart. So, how do you shift? How do you shift and get out of a program, a pattern behavior that you've repeated pretty much your whole life and have kept yourself in a box? The first way, obviously, is healing your trauma, which is something that we dive deeper into in Break the Cycle, which is my program for high achieving women. But two things that can shift your emotional home and get you into the state that's going to be congruent with a healthy relationship, and just forget the relationship, just make you happier every single day. Number one way to shift your emotional home is gratitude, is as having some form of a gratitude practice. Now, a lot of women, especially when we first start working together, this is really hard. And I'm sure you've heard, oh, yeah, gratitude. I've heard of that. I know I need that. I'm writing my three things every single day. And yeah, I'm already doing that. And I have a lot of women who come to me and we establish a gratitude practice from the very first day. And what often happens, more so than not, is that I find people getting into a habit, they'll write things down that they're grateful for, but they don't feel it. They don't feel it. They don't truly feel grateful. They don't truly feel so overwhelmingly grateful and blown away by just waking up to a sunrise. They don't feel those things. What they feel is, oh my God, I have so much shit to do today. Oh my God, thinking about my ex again. Oh my gosh, I just found out that my ex is dating this other person. They write their three things down that they're grateful for, but they feel apathetic. They feel anxious. They feel like they don't have enough time. They feel like time is running out. They feel like they don't have enough of this or that. And life just keeps snowballing and they're not shifting their emotional home. And your emotions, how you're feeling every day, are directly linked to your subconscious programming. To shift your subconscious programming, you have to feel better, truly, without getting a new guy, without buying something, without drinking a bottle of wine, without spending 5 hours on the internet and zoning out to your phone or your computer. Like you have to learn to self to feel grateful on command, which is ultimately what I help my clients do: retrain, rewire their brain and their body so that instead of living in anxiety or fear based thoughts or lack or not enoughness or whatever, we literally deep down in their subconscious and in their psychology and the feelings and the chemicals that they're feeling in their body, rewire that so that gratitude becomes the norm. And you can write three things down, you can write 10 things down, but the key here is feeling it. And in my experience, this is not the easiest thing to do. It takes practice, it takes commitment, and it takes consistency. So that's the first way to begin shifting and elevating your emotional home. The second way, and this is something that we practice, is celebrating the small things, celebrating your little wins, celebrating your big wins, celebrating every single win that you have. Most people do not do this. Most people are more focused on what went wrong, what's going wrong. I talk to women on breakthrough calls. They tell me, I've been dating for 6 months. Every guy that I go out with is a disappointment. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with these men. They're focused on what's going wrong. I've never had a healthy relationship. I'm 57. All the men that I've dated, all the men that I've married have been alcoholics. Anytime I go on a date, I'm massively disappointed. They're focusing on the problem and they're focusing on what's wrong. They're not celebrating the fact that they started dating again. They're not celebrating the fact that they woke up yesterday and they felt a little happier. They're not celebrating the fact that they took a stand for themselves at work and asked for the raise or asked for the promotion or asked to lead a project. They're not celebrating the fact that they told a close family member no and ruffled some tail feathers. They're not celebrating their wins. So, the second key ingredient to begin shifting your emotional home is learning to celebrate the little things, learning to celebrate. I woke up 4 days this week and I was so happy and I felt so in love with my life. I'll also be the first to tell you that doing that is not easy. And in fact, a lot of the people that I work with here, they tend to have a hard time celebrating themselves, at least in the beginning, because it's new. They're not used to doing it. They're used to focusing on what's wrong with me. Why am I ever going to have a healthy relationship? They're too busy focusing on my ex did this, then he did this, and then this happened. They're too focused on what's not going right in their life. And there's a famous saying that where focus goes, energy flows. That's true. Where focus goes, energy flows. But if you're focusing more on what you don't want, you tend to get more of what you don't want. And I know this sounds a little flippant, and there's obviously problems in life. I'm not telling you to ignore your problems and be delusionally optimistic or have toxic positivity or whatever, or spiritually bypass your problems. Learning to celebrate yourself for just little milestones every single day is one of the ingredients that is going to help you raise your emotional home and where you're living inside. Because at the end of the day, If you want to feel emotionally free, if you want to feel more confident, if you want to feel wildly in love with your life right now, and you want a healthy relationship in the future, and you've never had that before, you are going to have to change a lot of what's going on in here. And then things out here start to shift. And we give our clients the strategies to shift things out here. We spend like the first 8 or 9 weeks together just in here, just on elevating all of this, just on clearing out past trauma, just on healing codependent patterns, on abandonment issues, all of that kind of stuff. Because your emotional home and who you are being and feeling every single day, the feelings you're feeling, your outlook on life, your mindset is really what has to change for you to see lasting transformation. So, if you know that you have an issue with this, if you're smart, if you're educated, if you're successful in your career, if you're successful in life, but when you look at your love life, it's been one constant betrayal, heartache, dysfunction, codependency, hoping he's going to change scenario after the other. And that's been your primary pattern. And you want to break free from that pattern and you want to no longer feel anxious. You don't want to keep ruminating about an ex. You don't want to keep feeling stuck in your own life. And you want to have the confidence to open your heart and put yourself out there and feel just so exuberant and in love with your own life and let life in and let love in, then this is what we help women do. Go to BethanyDotson.com/talk, book a free breakthrough call. We're going to have a very honest conversation with you about your stuff, your blocks, right? We're going to ask you some specific strategic questions to help you get clarity on why you're still doing what you're doing. Because we all do the same thing because it's comfortable for us on some level. Most importantly, we're going to help you get extremely clear on what you really want. Like I said before, most of the women that I talk to, and when they first enroll to work with us, they're more focused on what's not going right. They have a hard time celebrating the good stuff until they get into the habit. So we're going to get you really clear on what you want. Not the, oh, well, it would be nice kind of a goal. Like the, oh my God, this blows my mind type of a goal. And if I feel that I can help you, given where you are in your journey, and I feel like we've got to have a connection on that call, if I feel I can help you get from stuckness, trauma, codependency, fear, the crappy things over here that are standing in your way, and help you transmute those into inner self trust, honoring your intuition every single day, waking up feeling happy every single day, feeling emotionally free, feeling calm, feeling peaceful, learning to set boundaries with ease, learning to communicate your value, learning to date in a way that's healthy for you, where you're trusting yourself and you're vulnerable and you're emotionally naked, then book a free breakthrough call and I'll see if I can help you. That's BethanyDotson.com/talk. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you soon. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. A brand new episode drops each week. Be sure to click and subscribe. And remember, healing trauma, codependency, and your lifelong pattern in love does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance and evidence-based methods. And I have helped hundreds of incredible women from all over the country heal betrayal trauma and reclaim their confidence while falling wildly in love with their own lives and attracting healthy relationships. If you like what you heard today and you want to see if you're fit to work with us, go to BethanyDotson.com/talk. That's BethanyDotson.com/talk and book a call to speak with us today. We'll get on the phone for about 45 minutes and get you crystal clear on 3 things. The real reason you keep attracting dysfunctional relationships, even if you know better or even if you've done tons of work on yourself. What you really want in a relationship, how you want to feel emotionally every single day in your life, and what lifestyle changes you want to make. And then number 3, the exact strategy you need to be using to get there. Again, healing trust issues, codependency, and a lifelong pattern does not happen without expert guidance. We've helped hundreds of women across the country heal complex trauma, codependency, and have the healthiest relationships ever, both with themselves and with others. Go to bethanydotson.com/talk to book your call today. I'll see you on the next episode.